Giovanni, your camera's not on if your camera isn't on if you don't care, but.
Good evening, Links families. I'm Ruth Metzger. Welcome to our informational family night for planning for in-person. We know there's lots and lots of questions. We're hoping to answer some of them for you so that you can make an informed decision about what's best for your kiddo and your family. Tonight we're going to review the timeline for opting into in-person. And we want to share the district's bell schedule and our instructional plan in response to that and how we're looking at our time so that we're ready to start on April 19th. We'll overview the COVID safety plan to make sure you understand how we're going to keep your students safe while they're here at school. And then we hope to answer any questions that come up during the chat. And we'll do our best to answer them. This is sort of a moving process with the district right now, so there are things that we are working on learning more about, but this will give us a frame as we work forward with our district partners. So the timeline. On April 2nd, SPS shared a survey with you. You got a unique survey for each student you have in our school system. If you didn't receive the survey, you can access it through this link here. We'll be posting this PowerPoint on our website tomorrow morning. And we also mailed out the link in our family letter that we sent out again this morning. The deadline has been changed from noon tomorrow to 11:59. And so we're hoping to get as many families in there by that time as possible so that we know what we're working for. If a survey is not completed, the default is to stay remote. April 7th, the district will be working hard to compile the data and assigning cohorts. And then we'll be letting families know whether they're in a cohort that will attend school on Tuesdays, and Monday and Tuesday, or Thursday and Friday. The week of spring break, it'll probably come out then. And then April 19th, we'll hit the ground running with a new schedule and our model implemented. If you're thinking about having your student return to school, it's important that any medications that they take on campus have a form to support it. We will have a nurse here each day when there are students here. The medication form and release is linked here where it says here. It was also sent in our family email for you to access that. All right, so the model that was selected came out of a bargain between the Seattle Education Association and Seattle Public Schools. And these are kind of the considerations that they came up with. The overarching one is they're committed to a continuous access for equitable and quality education for all students by acknowledging the importance of providing high quality instruction throughout the day. And then there were some things that they really paid attention to. Any instructional model should continue to promote our goals for racial equity and our focus on students of color furthest from educational justice. And then students who are fully remote should get access to the same instructional support throughout the day as their peers who opt to come into school. And then students would be able to complete their courses in their classes in the same courses they enroll with their current teachers. So if you have a teacher for first period, when you come back in the afternoon, whether it's remote or in class, you'll have the same teacher. Students should be able to receive social emotional learning support throughout the day. And then lastly, the governor's proclamation on March 12th required that 30% of instructional time be in person. And that's for all districts across Washington. So that is 80.2 hours between April 19th and June 18th, which is the last day of school. So what is a cohort? The idea is that the school will divide into sort of 3 cohorts. Cohort A will attend in the afternoons, Monday and Tuesday, and Cohort B will attend in the afternoons on Thursday and Friday. Cohort C will attend their afternoons remote all days of the week. All cohorts will be remote on Wednesdays for our mentorship class. So what does it look like? Here's a schema from our district here that might be helpful, might not be helpful. School will begin at 9, and it will be starting Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday remotely for all students, as imaged by that little computer right there. This is live remote instruction that you've been seeing so far to date. Then there's a transition period, and then on Monday and Tuesday, since this is an example for Cohort A, those students will transition in the afternoon to the schoolhouse, and they will attend from 11:55 to 3:50. Cohorts B and Cohort C will remote in and join a Teams link during that same time for each of their classes. Thursday and Friday would be the flip, where the B cohort's coming in and A and C are remotely remoting into the afternoon classes. This is what it looks like for the 100% remote, just so you can see what Cohort C looks like, and you can see that they're getting on Teams links for their whole day. All right, so next, Sarah Tuttle, our assistant principal, will talk to you a little bit through about the day in the life of a student in this new hybrid model and what it looks like.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. Just to build on what Principal Metzger was laying out, the cohort model, now putting it into a bell schedule. This is the sample bell schedule that we can present this evening. This is what's been drafted by the district and the union so far. We want to note that there is a change here from the instructional model at LHS so far this year. We have been starting our classes at 9:30 in the morning, and moving starting April 19th, we will start at 9 a.m. That half an hour is kind of an important change, and we want to call it out. So putting those cohorts into the bell schedule, here we are. We have 2 sessions for each class period every day. In the morning, you will have a shorter whole group, everybody live together remotely in the morning for 40-minute classes. We will then transition to our lunch period starting at 11:10 with travel time to school built in at the end of lunch. We've sort of broken this out for you in a 45-minute period to sort of think about 30 minutes to eat, 15 minutes to travel. Your student will have to think about what their travel needs are and the travel time to school and kind of balance out that 45-minute period to arrive here at school by 11:55. At 11:55, our afternoon session will then pick up, repeating our class periods again in the afternoon with longer instructional time in the afternoon. So our first period will go from 11:55 to 1:10. We will then have a 5-minute transition period. Our second period, well, our second and fifth period for Monday, Tuesday, will go from 1:15 to 2:30, and then our third and sixth periods in the afternoon will start at 2:35 and end at 3:50 in the afternoon. Our Wednesday schedule will remain just the same as it has this entire year so far. We will still have our mentorship classes at the same times, with our 10th and 11th grade mentorship starting at 11:30, then going to lunch, and our 9th grade mentorship beginning at 1:15. The morning and afternoon time on Wednesdays, which is an early release day, will be open to individual and small group support scheduled by the teacher or at student request as needed, and those will be scheduled in advance for those days. So to give you some more clarity here and sort of looking at the instructional model for the afternoon, it's important to note that students that are transitioning from home learning to the schoolhouse for in-person do need to bring their laptop with them to school, either their district issued or their personal device, whatever they've been using so far this year. We will continue to access the technology here with in-person learning. And then our at-home students will log in via a Teams link, just like they did for the morning session of the morning, to join their peers that are here in the schoolhouse in the afternoon. Our teachers will engage both online with our at-home learners and in person with our in-person learners, delivering content and student tasks and deeper instruction to both groups equally in the afternoon. And here's a little more about what that could potentially look like. We want to acknowledge that our teachers are still fleshing this out, and we are at the beginning stages of developing our instructional model implementations for the afternoon. But here's some things that we're talking about. For sure, we have those 2 class sessions every day, classes divided into that morning and afternoon. The use of the afternoon time is going to vary by department, course, content needs, instruction needs, units that are going on, AP classes, art classes, music classes, all have different instructional needs. But throughout all of those, our goal here is to maximize our instructional engagement, provide more direct instruction and support for students to be able to engage in making sense of concepts, getting deeper practice, doing presentations and projects, research, engaging in writing activities and workshops, editing, conferences, getting teacher feedback, one-to-one supports, small group supports, deeper learning throughout the afternoon. Cohorts, both in-person and remote, will have equal access and opportunity to engage in all of those activities. And we will continue to utilize the technologies that we've used so far this year to support student learning, things like OneNote, Schoology, our Teams channels, and access to private conversation with teachers for support and help through our Teams chat will all remain in place for all learners, whether they are at home or in the schoolhouse. With that, I'm going to turn this over to my partner, Corey Eichner, our other assistant principal, who's going to talk to you about our COVID safety protocols.
Good evening. So as you can probably imagine, we have been quite hard at work getting ready for students to return to school safely. When your student returns to Lincoln, they can expect to see a variety of new procedures and traffic flow patterns throughout the entire building. First among them is going to be the daily attestation that will be required of all students and staff before entering the building. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes, but just wanted to call that out to begin with. Just as we've implemented for all of our distribution events throughout this entire year, a wearing of masks will be required of all students. In addition to that, we will be enforcing physical distancing in all of our learning spaces and hallways. Once our in-person cohorts have been assigned, so whether you are assigned to A or assigned to B, we will be sending out additional information to students and families on specific directions regarding arrival and departure protocols. In other words, we will be assigning students specific entrances and exits, and potentially even periods of time that we would like them to arrive. Be on the lookout for that once those cohorts have been established. We have been working in partnership with the central office to set our maximum capacity, following the CDC guidelines for all of our learning spaces, including our classrooms, our small group breakouts, our large group areas such as our commons. In addition to that, our bathrooms. We will have these maximum capacity signs posted throughout the building, and we are going to ask that all students and staff adhere to our max capacity throughout Lincoln. We have been busy setting up all of our classrooms to comply with CDC guidelines for COVID safety. Part of this is asking us to partner with our families because we will not be allowing any type of shared supplies among our students. In other words, just like Ms. Tuttle was talking about, we are asking that students bring their laptop to school, and in addition, they should be bringing any supplies that they might need for their classes. This includes pencils, notebooks, calculators, textbooks, etc. There will be some cases in which supplies have been checked out to students. Some of our lab classes, such as ceramics or drawing and painting or robotics, students have been checked out, individual bins, and students can expect to work with those teachers on whether those bins will be held here at school or at home if they're opting to in-person instruction. The main thing here is to be listening to our teachers that first week to find out what supplies we should have at school, because we don't want supplies passing back and forth between our students throughout the school days. In addition, for safety, we are going to be asking that no eating happens in the classroom. Students will be allowed to bring water bottles with them and have water in the classroom, and watering stations throughout the building will be open. Drinking fountains will not, so we are asking that students please bring their own bottle so they can refill that throughout the day. For students who don't have water with them, we will have a limited supply of bottled water available, but again, we are asking for that partnership from families to make sure that students bring that bottle with them when they come to school. So let's talk a little bit about that screening process, because that's incredibly important. So just as I noted earlier, we will be following a daily attestation process that has now been shifted to an online Qualtrics program. Students will receive daily a prompt to complete their attestation, online before they come to the Lincoln campus. This is not something that students have to wait to do as they are transitioning to school. In fact, we are encouraging them to complete that first thing in the morning. When students wake up and answer those series of questions, they will be given one of two indicators. They will either be approved to come to campus and go through their school day, or they will get a not approved indicator. Of course, those that get approved, they should come to campus at their designated time. And again, please do follow those entry procedures that we will send out to you once those cohorts have been established. If the student receives that not approved indicator, we are going to ask if the student is kept home on that particular day. Depending on the cause for that not approved indicator, you may receive or be prompted by the program to seek medical attention. Otherwise, we are asking for you to call the school, let us know that your student will not be attending, and then completing that attestation report again the following day or the next time that they are eligible for in-person instruction. Now, while we are asking for students to please complete this daily attestation prior to arriving to campus, we understand and recognize that there may be instances where a student has forgotten. Again, we want to partner with you. The entry into the building will happen much faster if students are just able to show that approved, symbol on their phone to let us know that they have passed the Qualtrics survey. But in the event that they come and haven't completed it, we will have QR codes posted outside that a student can scan with their phone. And if they don't have access to a phone, we do have a tablet available that they can complete the Qualtrics screening process. Just like before, when that happens, they will get either the approved or the not approved. If they get approved, they will be brought into the building throughout their academic day. And if they're not approved, we want to work with students and family to ensure that we are keeping them safe. So if the student gets the not approved, we will escort them to an area that we've identified as our protected healthcare room. From here, we will reach out and begin to work with you, the families, on the cause for which caused the not approval to come across. We will talk about the questions that they answered, and we will seek out whether or not the student has had any recent symptoms for COVID, as well as if they've had any type of exposure or known exposure to somebody who has tested positive for, COVID-19. If they have symptoms or if they have had exposure to COVID-19, we will ask the family come pick them up and bring them home for the day. If in the process of us going through this, we discover that the student doesn't have any symptoms and they've not had any exposure, we will communicate and work with you and then allow the student to go through their designated day. In addition to all of this, of course, additional safeguards have been planned for and we will continue to implement as we get closer to the 19th. This includes daily cleaning throughout the entire building, closing off of particular areas that are too small for small groups to meet, as well as limiting the access of areas such as individual sinks in classrooms and asking students to use the identified sinks in the bathrooms. Additionally, we have personal protective equipment in all of our learning spaces, all of our classrooms that students will have access to and will be able to utilize throughout the day, as well as our students will continue to have access to our school nurse and other healthcare services in our student health center. So in addition to some of the information that we covered, we know that there are some questions out there that people are seeking answers for. First and foremost, nutrition services. We are currently waiting for additional guidance and information from nutrition services regarding what type of lunch offerings, grab and go type offerings may or may not be offered here at Lincoln, and we will get back to those who are interested in this particular service. We've also received additional questions around transportation. As a general expectation, high schoolers are expected to use Metro if they need to be transported to and from Lincoln on the days that they are designated for in-person instruction. As a reminder, Orca cards were provided during the start of the school year in the distribution event that we had in September. If students are going to be carpooling with their families, just like last year, we are asking for you to designate a drop-off and pickup area about a block away from the school just to help with traffic flow in and around Lincoln. We also recognize that some of our students have turned 16 since the last time we saw them here on campus. And so while we are encouraging students not to drive and instead to take Metro and or carpool with their families, if a student is driving themselves to school, we would like to remind them that we do not have on-site parking available, and the only thing that's offered to them is off-site that they're going to have to take advantage of. Lastly, people have asked us about supply distribution and those students who have opted to stay fully remote. We will continue to have our supply distribution throughout the remainder of the school year so that all students, whether they are in person or remote, will continue to access the needed supplies for their success in class. I'm so sorry I skipped over athletics. We have received questions about athletic participation, and of course, we will be moving into season 2. And students can participate in athletics regardless if they choose in person or if they are staying fully remote. So if you have a student athlete, they will continue to participate and they will get that communication from their coaches and the athletic director on how that works with daily attestation and the safety precautions that are being made for our student athletes on campus. With that, we're going to close out the formal information that we have provided. But before we close this evening, I would like to invite Ms. Tuttle, Ms. Metzger, and Mr. Trevino, who've been monitoring the chat, looking for some questions that you may have to make sure that we address as many of those that we can. As a reminder, if we don't address your questions specifically, we are taking these questions and tracking them as a way to help shape and guide our planning as we continue to evolve this process. This is something that we will be working on over the course of this week and through spring break, as well as monitoring and adjusting our practices as we move to in-person. So the questions you are asking are important and help shape our thinking on that. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Tuttle, Ms. Metzger, and Mr. Trevino to call out any questions that we have in chat that we feel is important for us to address to the entire campus community.
Mr. Eichner?
Yes.
Can you make me live, I guess?
Ms. Metzger, they can also hear you when we speak.
Okay. So I'm going to address that. There's a collection of questions around band, and we are aware there are some different guidelines for band in terms of how far they're spaced for a wind instrument, and the same is true for choral. We will be buying, the district is providing PP&E that will work for our instruments and our singers. We are also buying that ahead of time out of our school budget so that we can provide it. Band and orchestra and choir will also be in cohorts and will be spread out through the day. There was a question about jazz band. We're not quite sure where jazz band fits in since it's a 0 period and then having remote learning is a little difficult. So we're still playing around with where that might fit into our day. But yes, the music PP&E is a big part of it, and they will be in bigger spaces. I believe they have to be 9 feet apart. A second group of questions.
There were a number of questions about the transportation time, and we want to acknowledge that the lunch period that has been negotiated between the district and the union is short. You know, that 45 minutes to eat and plan your route to school is a little bit short. We do intend to be flexible with students arriving to school. Again, this is a sample schedule that's been drafted by the district, and the implementation here at Lincoln, our goal is always for the health, safety, and well-being of our students to make sure that they are fed and able to arrive to school safely. And we'll have to handle things on a case-by-case basis as we roll out this plan.
There's also a group of questions about if you need to quarantine or if you're sick, can you join the remote learning cohort? And I think we will have a process on that. You may need to just call the office and say that you're not going to be in person, but we'll come up with that. But that's a good plan there. There's also questions about the ever-changing plans. I see Mr. Eichner's answered it in the chat, so I won't go into that. But we are following our district guidelines that are based off of the CDC.
Sorry.
Are you going to go on to the science question and hands-on?
Not quite yet. I was going to just address the cohort questions because there are several of them. Okay. At this time, we won't really know what the cohorts look like until you guys all respond to the survey. So we need family feedback for the cohorts to be able to be assigned. They will be assigned to the best of our ability to match siblings to come, family members to come to the same days. There's also questions about whether or not you can change your cohorts. We want to call out that is our understanding that if you choose to change your choice from in-person to remote or vice versa, it will have to go through a district appeal process after the 19th. And so we would really encourage you to choose the model that best suits your family and your student needs. We also really want to call out that, our teenagers need social interaction, and they need learning, and they need school, and they need support. And so we want to encourage them to choose the model that's best for them, but we also want to encourage them to come to school.
There was questions about hands-on in science, and I think you could say hands-on in science, hands-on in art, hands-on in math. That's best practice for all of our students to be able to do that kind of learning. So it was really innovative in listening to our science teachers and how they might do a little bit more hands-on science work in their classrooms. And one of their ideas is to put kids into triads with one student in the classroom and two who are on there, and have that student be modeling the experiment and the rest of them working with them. So we're working on that, but the students cannot be working in small groups. They can't get closer than 6 feet, and they need to have their own materials, and they can't be sharing materials. So we're brainstorming all of that of how we can give them that hands-on experience and make it equitable for our students who choose to be remote, as well as being those in the building. So stay tuned. I think we've got lots of great ideas, and I think you'll see it emerge over the first couple weeks of school as teachers get better and better in this blended model that is yet another change that they're working on.
We see some more questions about the afternoon time. Yes, all students, either remote or in person, will log in together at their class time for both sessions, both morning and afternoon, regardless if you are in person or at home. We'll log into both sessions for the full class period. And yes, there will be instruction in the afternoon offered to both access points, either in person or at home. We have heard sort of out in our community this idea that the afternoon is a study hall, and we want to say out loud that this is going to be deep, rich learning with content support and continuation from the morning. It is not a study hall, it is a class period, especially for students that are looking at staring down AP exams or final projects or things of that matter. Our teachers will be working hard to prepare them to be successful.
There was a question I would just quickly call out regarding access to lockers and other shared space. Unfortunately, at this time, no, we will not have access to lockers for students. Again, this goes with no shared supplies, and so students will need to pack with them in a bag to and from school what they need, and we will work individually with students for those who may have instruments and so forth, but as a general rule, there will not be access to lockers.
There's lots and lots of concern about the lunch, and principals have brought it up, and we brought it up, and so we continue. We'll share your thoughts with the district as we move forward, but at a school, we will certainly be flexible, knowing that our students come from the whole North End if they're accessing different programs. So it just might be what we do. But just know that that is a concern that is coming up from other schools as well.
There's a great question about orientation plans specifically for ninth graders. We recognize that we have an entire class of students that has never been in our building, and so we are super excited to welcome those that choose to come in person to show them around the building. The first week will be a lot of start of schools routines that we would have offered in September and an in-person year for those students choosing to join us in person. We will be doing some orientation for those students that are choosing the online at home version in the afternoon. We have some equally important orientation things to do with them as well, as the models are going to change and the way they interact with their peers are going to change and the instructional offerings are going to change, and teachers will be working hard to support everyone in being successful in the new model and the new bell schedule.
Ms. Tuttle, that was a great question that I want to call attention to. As folks were asking about the types of supplies that they will need outside of a laptop if they are opting for in-person instruction. Great question. During that first week, certainly bring standard supplies such as pens and pencils to school. Make sure you have that laptop, and then teachers will communicate that first week, the week of the 19th, what additional supplies might be needed, because we will be transitioning from that full remote environment to some in-person. So they'll let you know what they need to bring, but I would suggest on that first couple of days, just have your standard pens and pencils, notebook, just so you have stuff for note taking, and then wait for the teachers for any additional supplies that might be necessary. There was a question here about attendance. Yes, attendance will be taken both because going off of what Ms. Tuttle had discussed, because this is an extension of the first part of the class is in the morning, the second part of the class is in the afternoon. We will be taking attendance both in the morning and in the afternoon, and so students will be expected to be engaging in both parts of their learning. So yes, attendance will be taken both places.
There was a question here, and I lost it as I'm scrolling, about IEP students having the opportunity to take the survey and choose a cohort. I am not totally sure. The question referenced something about not getting another survey for the April 19th start. All students should receive a survey. If you did not, please see our family letter that went out this morning that is published on the LHS website that has a link to the survey if you did not receive it to make your choice. We will absolutely be supporting our IEP students in the in-person model. Some of the ideas being thrown around by our IEP department is to even offer some drop-in supports during the day as focus classes, as well as those focus classes will be in person and online if your student is currently scheduled in a focus class. There was a question about our schedule, if the model is consistent across the entire district for all high schools, and the answer is yes. This bell schedule is part of our tentative agreement between the union and the district.
There was a great question about if a student is partially homeschooled or if they are partially running START. And yes, and so we would apply it the same way. If they are attending first period at Lincoln High School, they would come to in-person instruction during the first period, a lot of time, as well as be online. during the first period a lot of time, and then leave campus or sign off so that they can go to their homeschool or Running Start or other programs they're working with. If there is an instance where there is a conflict in those schedules, say with Running Start, we would ask that you reach out to your counselor so that we can plan accordingly for that.
There's several questions about the windows being open, and they may or they may not be, but part of the classroom occupancy is based on air exchange by HVAC systems. And so because we're a brand new building, we have a very good HVAC system. So whether windows are open or not, we have good air exchange with good filters.
I want to address to the best of our ability. There's a lot of questions about COVID safety protocols and distancing and the wisdom of opening our school and all of those pieces. We are following our district guidance and guidelines and the agreement negotiated by the union in the district. We are following all COVID safety protocols set forth by the district. Those are not dictated here at the site level. They are guided by the district level, and we are here to implement them as they are given to us. Question about, do we anticipate that teachers will be talking to their in-person students through a device so they can simultaneously teach the remote students? What it looks like in that in-person and remote hybrid is going to really vary by the content and course and the needs of the instruction for those different areas. Our teachers are really working hard this week to collaborate and plan on best approaches for different units and different content areas. And for some classes that might look like simultaneous instruction, both remote and in-person at the same time. For others, that might look like cohorts of students that are working together online with their online peers and in person in the classroom. It might look like small groups, both online and in person. I think it's going to vary depending on the instructional needs of the class at the time. Following up on that, there's a question about how our teachers are feeling about the dual modes. And I just want to take a minute to say we had the opportunity to spend the day with our staff for the first time this year today. And our teachers are excited and working hard to offer the best instruction possible and make it happen for all of our learners, both at home and in person, with high expectations, high quality, and really diving deep into the curriculum for rich learning experiences. I want to say on the whole, our staff was really looking forward to this opportunity and this challenge. We've really embraced it pretty well so far this year, we think, and then continue that throughout the rest of the school year. There are some questions coming in about the model in the fall. We do not yet have any information about what the school day will look like in the fall. There's some questions about the AP exams. We are still waiting district guidance on the required in-person AP exams, but for the exams that are offered digitally, students will be taking them digitally for the most part in testing window administration 3, which will take place in early June. There are several questions coming in about switching models. And so I'll just reiterate what I shared earlier in the presentation at this time. If you choose to switch the model chosen in the survey, it will require going through the district appeal process for the way that your child is enrolled in the school day.
I just want to reiterate, in this cohort model, differently than an elementary school, students have 6 classes that they're assigned to. And so for us to go through and balance the classes to meet the HVAC and the distancing guidelines and make sure our students are all safe, we have to make sure that that unique student who goes to each of their 6 classes fits in a space. So it's not as easy as saying that we can move you to your desired time. But we might be flexible to do a few changes in there for really good reasons. But the computers, when they schedule a student, they don't say, okay, we're going to put 50% of the students whose names are going to be A through M, and then the next 50% will be M through Z. And so it's a balancing act, and that's why it's really important that we get our surveys in really quickly so that we know who we're planning for and how we balance our classes to make sure that they are even. Most of our classes are 28 to 31, 32. So you can see how that works, that if we had 20 kids who are A through M, what that looks like in there, and we're going to have to find different spaces and things. So it's important that once we get a cohort that we stick to it, because it's going to be a lot of work on that. The other thing about saying, well, my kid decides they don't want to come to school today, so can they just join cohort C for the day? The teachers are working really hard to provide balanced activities. And so they're going to be having groups set up for the remote students that are going to work. So when you have a student come in and just join C without any prior notification to the teachers, there may not be groups ready for them. They may not have that same link, and all of those different things are going to play. So as much as possible, we want you to commit to a model and stay with that cohort. Obviously, if there might be times when your student truly is sick or you're quarantining, and we'll work with the teacher to do short time things like that. But that's the rationale for why we really need to know soon who's coming back so that we can balance your classes and keep your kids safe. Have we gotten a lot of the questions?
I think we've hit most of the ones that have consistent themes. I think at this point we'll have to take the questions in the chat that are unanswered and let them guide our next communication to families out through our family email, and sharing information as needed as we receive it from the district and things develop.
All right, Ms. Metzger, is there any final thoughts that you would like to share before we close up for the evening?
No, we know this is a big decision. We're here to support you. We have had this information since Thursday of how we're proceeding and what the information will go. I just want to let you know your teachers here at Lincoln are really, really innovative, hardworking teachers. They realize that this model adopted by the district is different than the one we have and actually provides potentially less opportunity for instruction. And they're working their ways around it to make sure that the afternoon sessions, whether students come remotely or in person, are rigorous, meaningful, and move our students forward. And so thank you for your support. We know these times are just stressful for everybody, but we really are hoping that we get as many kids back so that we can start this process of getting school going. We will post this tomorrow morning, and good luck with your decisions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lincoln.